Hi guys! This tutorial is about responsive web design using CSS. I hope you learned from me. Let's start now. Okay, so why responsive web design is important? Well, the ultimate goal of responsive design is to avoid the unnecessary resizing, scrolling, zooming, or panning that occurs with sites that have not been optimized for different devices. Web pages can be viewed using many different devices such as desktops, tablets, and phones. Your web page should look good and be easy to use regardless of the device. When you have a website with responsive design, you can make changes quickly and easily. You do not need to worry about making changes on two websites. This flexibility is a huge advantage when you want to make a quick design tweak or fix a typo on your site. You only have to do it once. To start, let's create a folder containing an index.html file and style.css. In our index.html file, let's add the HTML structure. Then we can add the title. Now the most important thing to add for the website to be responsive is the meta tag. HTML5 introduced a method to let web designers take control over the viewport through the meta tag. You should include the meta viewport element in all your web pages. When we say viewport, it is the user's visible area of a web page. It varies with the device, so if you are using smaller devices, your viewport is smaller than a computer screen. The width property controls the size of the viewport. It can be set to a specific number of pixels, like width equals to 600, or to the special value device width, which is the width of the screen in CSS pixels at a scale of 100%. The initial scale property controls the zoom level when the page is first loaded. Many web pages are based on a grid view, which means that a page is divided into columns. A responsive grid view often has 12 columns and has a total width of 100%, and will shrink and expand as you resize the browser window. It plays an important role in designing web pages because it's easier to place elements on the page. To build a responsive grid view, let's ensure that all HTML elements have box sizing property set to border box value. This makes sure that the padding and border are included in the total width and the height of the elements. So to add this CSS, we have to create an external style sheet and embed it into our index.html file. Now we can add the box sizing property with border box value. Then let's try adding two columns inside a row in our HTML file. After adding the HTML tags, let's add style for responsive. As you can see, all these columns are floated to the left. Because of this, the elements inside a column will be taken out of the flow of the page. To prevent it from happening, we have to add a style in the row with after selector. We use the clear property with both values so the new row will be added below the first row. The example we created shows that you have to use percent value for the width of an element, especially for the column. Now, as I mentioned it earlier, there are 12 columns in total for a web page. So let's create the 12 columns classes and use it for responsive web page. All these columns should be floating to the left and should have padding of 15 px and a border as well. Let's create a simple web page. We will add header and footer. Now we will add two rows inside a section. We will use a section tag, and within a section tag, we will add two div elements with a class row. Then, inside the first row, we'll add two columns and add anything inside each column. For the second row, we can add three columns and add texts inside each column. Okay, so now we have a web page. Let's try adding images to the web page created. Let's check it in a browser if it's already responsive. Looking at it, it is still a mess because the images are out of proportion and did not fit to its column's width. What should we do to fix it and make it responsive? As I have said earlier, to make elements inside a column responsive, we have to use percent on its width property. In this case, we have to make sure the image elements should be well fitted to our column, so we have to add image with a max width property 100% value. Okay, I think it's all good. Okay, so what is media query? Media query is a CSS technique introduced in CSS3. It uses @media rule to include a block of CSS properties, only if a certain condition is true. Earlier in this tutorial, we made a web page with rows and columns, and it was responsive, but it did not look good on a small screen. Media queries can help with that. We can add a breakpoint where certain parts of the design will behave differently on each side of the breakpoint. There are tons of screens and devices with different heights and widths, so it is hard to create an exact breakpoint for each device. To keep things simple, you could target 5 groups: the extra small devices, medium devices, large devices, and extra large devices. These are the different breakpoints using @media rule that you could use in your development. First, we have to add this style to make all columns change its width to 100% when it reaches the small devices. Let's try to hide elements using the media queries. This will surely hide all images on the web page if the width is 600 px below. Now let's try changing the font style of the text using media queries. Notice that the text changed its font style when it reached 600 px below. You can also use media queries to change the font size of an element on different screen sizes. Thank you for watching this video.